folks. Welcome to an episode of the Artenders with Mac and Dan. I am Dan. He is Mac.
What's up?
This is an art review show where we consume art and try to learn from art. May it be movies, TV shows, video games, music, anything like that, in order to better learn and become better students of which that is art.
Nice. It's a very good intro. Yeah, and ideally you are learning at the same pace that we are.
Ideally, but I mean, we cannot control that.
We cannot is the thing. So we're just crossing our fingers hoping that you are learning something at the same pace that we are, or learning something at all ever.
Yes, and I am finally paying off my bet as well. Finally paying off the penalty points.
I thought this was just what you looked like today.
Well, some may say, yeah. I'm in, striped pants, a loose kind of like white shirt and black vest. I have an eye patch on and a nice little cap as well. Salutations, nice. Good sir.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
I really like that.
I'm really feeling it. Becoming the role that is a sort of day and night trader on the high seas. Let's call it like that.
Interesting. Because earlier you were a very specific character from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Why do we have to bring that up? I mean, pirate is such a lowly status,
Fair.
I am a merchant, simply.
You're just a seaman.
Yeah.
Who happens to have an eye patch.
Of course. Yeah, well, this was a traumatic accident. Of course. No need to discuss.
Honestly, Danny, I think I might rather riff on your pirate Halloween costume we got from Party City than have to really deep dive into the thing that we're reviewing today.
Which is Movie 43, a film that was released in 2013, directed by multiple people, written by multiple people, starring multiple people, and an absolute dumpster fire of a film.
There's no better way to say it.
It's a film. It's supposed to be a comedy film. It does not succeed that well in that.
Nice.
It really doesn't really succeed at all in that. Where it's a bunch of sketches kind of put together with the very loose through line of Dennis Quaid's character trying to pitch all these different movies to Greg Kinnear's character, and that's the through line of the film, and it's a bunch of different sketches,
and it shows you segments of what this movie would look like if his pitches were given money.
Correct. And so I remember hearing about this movie when it came out, and I remember hearing really poor reviews for this film when it came out, and I'm like, that's so strange, because when you look at a stellar cast,
you'd imagine.
I mean, we could go through the list,
right,
of the actors in this film. I'll give you 10. I'll just give you 10, right?
Just 10.
Yeah, just 10. Emma Stone, Stephen Merchant,
yeah,
Richard Gere, Liev Schreiber. I already gave you a few right there. Hugh Jackman, Kate Winslet, Patrick Warburton, Naomi Watts.
Yeah.
Even, Chris Pratt and
Halle
Anna Faris.
Halle Berry's in this movie.
Oh, I forgot to put Halle Berry in that list, but that was just 10.
Yeah.
That was just 10 that I gave you.
Just a cool 10.
Of, pretty famous actors. Noteworthy actors.
Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah. Who directed
Josh
and, dude, it's a dumpster fire. It's a mess.
It really is.
And it's very loosely put together, and essentially how they filmed this bad boy was just it just took years and years, because they would just wait for these very famous A-list actors to become a part, when they had free time, to become a part of this project and really only shoot for a couple of days, and this film took 4 years to make, because they would just wait. They would wait for these actors to become available. I'm going to take off this eye patch because holy shit, it is so difficult to see. I would love to keep doing it for the bit, but it's making my job intensely difficult. It's hard to begin. It's hard to begin at such a rotten piece of trash.
Fair. So I think that we should first maybe talk about let's just get this out of the way. Just the most shocking moments, the moments that made you go, I'm impressed that Twitter has not gotten a hold of this yet, and we are not talking about the absolute outrages that are, held within this movie.
Here's the thing. So I don't think many people are watching this movie anymore because they know how bad it is. And you should not watch this movie. We watched this movie. I suggested this movie because I was like, how bad can this be? And B, very bad. And B, what can we learn from this movie so that, we as human beings don't make the same, don't fall into the same pits that these
Yeah.
particular creators, if you so dare to use that
Right.
word, fell into.
We can get into structure and technique and foundational stuff later. I think maybe more second half.
But let's talk about like the worst.
Let's just talk about content right now.
Yeah, let's just talk about strict content. Now, I will
Yes.
say conceptually, right, some of these sketches I think actually work pretty well. Conceptually,
Yeah.
just strict concept, not in terms
And
of
have
execution.
potential. So what were some of those? What were some of the ones that like the setup was like, okay, there's a lot of potential here.
I would say like the first two, for example.
First two,
are
okay.
pretty
So
good.
so
the
could you
first,
give the pitch concept for each of the first two?
So the first two sketches, the proper sketches that they show off. The first one is you have this like billionaire philanthropist who is like loved by the community.
And he's beautiful.
And-
It's Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, it's Hugh Jackman, and he's on a blind date, and he has a scarf around his neck, and he takes off the scarf, and he just has testicles, and that's just where his testicles
Are on his neck.
And it's like, it's not,
Out for
I
the
guess
world
when
to
I'm
see.
saying it out loud, it's not that funny, but the execution of it was actually okay.
It's the reveal. The reveal was really good.
Though it was a very good reveal. You weren't expecting it at all, and the jokes that were kind of like that they were presenting throughout it were decent
Also,
enough,
Kate
considering
Winslet-
that it was just testicles on somebody's neck.
Kate Winslet does a fantastic job in that.
Yeah.
Really, really funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, of just like specifically it's her trying to just via eye contact like look for help in the people that are passing by, or like the waiters that are talking to them, like with her eyes trying to be like, am I insane? Are you
Yeah.
seeing what I'm seeing
And
right
it's
now?
clear
That's
that
funny.
and it's clear that she's the only person in that room
That's
who,
willing to
who
acknowledge
doesn't
it.
well who doesn't know that
She didn't know already.
yeah or is the only one that wants to acknowledge it.
Right.
Like it's that weird thing of that ambiguity where we just don't know. But then you have the second sketch, once again conceptually,
Yeah.
where you have these two parents who are homeschooling their teenager, but they want to give the teenager the proper high school experience, which is essentially all the messed up stuff.
Which that's a great concept.
Yeah, and just like so like the dad is also the gym teacher and like bullying him as well as the mom being the English teacher,
Yeah.
bullying him, but then it gets really insane.
And
like,
then she
there's
like,
a-
as he's like walking up the stair with like his books or whatever, she like smacks them out of his hands and stuff.
yeah,
Because like she has
calls
to like
him names.
Yeah, and like that's funny. That's a,
Yeah.
I think a decent concept.
But then
and
it gets like
execution.
really uncomfortable, and I don't know where this is. I don't know where this is in terms of how funny it actually was. But like first, then there's like a house party at their house,
Right.
And then they're not letting the kid in because like he's the lame kid in school, you
right.
know.
And so like he has to watch his parents party with a bunch of random teenagers, and like that, I would say that's again in idea, in concept, a pretty funny like joke. I
Yeah.
think. I think seeing like Liev Schreiber, like motorboating some random teenager is not insanely funny, but I think that
Assuming that the person playing that teenager was not actually a teenager.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they were not. There's probably not the or like but like just the image of the mom being like having to decline her son, I think was pretty funny.
Entry to their own
But
home.
then it does get a little strange, little uncomfy, a
Yeah.
little yikes, cringy.
Yeah, which is when they give their child his first kiss.
Yeah.
And so, of course, the mom is playing the girl who wants to have sex
right.
with
right.
the
And
son.
so like
and then you have the dad, if you want to explain that one.
sure. And so the dad, well, I don't know how I'm going to, but I'm going to try. The dad, he is his best friend in this like kind of made up high school universe, whatever scenario world. And so because he is his best friend, he plays like his best friend is closeted, and so he like tries to make a pass at his son, and that ends up not panning out. And like of course the son is like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm nothing, man, I'm just messing around. And like I think it's supposed to be funny, but it's just uncomfortable. It's just very uncomfortable.
And then the sketch was getting somewhere towards the end when the kid comes down, meets like the new neighbors, and like the kid is completely normal and completely happy and has a wonderful relationship with the parents, and then all of a sudden grabs like a mannequin and that's his friend. Which that joke didn't land, but I'm like concept, I'm like this maybe could have been fleshed out a little.
Right. So again, like medium concept, but just does not Is something getting you? But just
well,
does
I
not.
use the term fleshed out when
Oh,
describing.
gross.
When describing like his friend as a mannequin. I just
Oh,
thought
okay.
it was
I thought you
accidental
were going back
wordplay.
to the sex stuff. Okay. Sorry, it's true.
Gross. It's a gross film.
But again, there are many like good ideas that are just not that like they
Like
start
Truth or
kind of
Dare
funny.
game that's gone too far.
That's funny. I think that's funny, and there's a lot of potential there. And like, I think that as far as they should have pushed it was getting a phallus tattooed on his face. I think that that's as far as it should have gone. But then whenever it starts getting into like, anti-Semitic, starts getting into like anti-Asian. It starts getting into really
getting
weird.
into racist things, getting into
Very strange.
homophobic things.
Yeah, like transphobic things. It's just it's
Yep,
all
that
super
too.
uncomfortable. Yeah, and you're like, okay, I think this joke would have landed like her being dared to again. A little racy, but I think still landed pretty well whenever she's dared to blow out the candles on a blind kid's birthday cake before he notices.
Yeah.
Although a little like cringy, I think kind of funny and landed.
Well, because so we're gonna have, whether it be now or later, we're gonna have the conversation between what is the punchline.
Yeah, fair.
I think that joke actually did land because the punchline is not.
It's
Hold
tough.
on.
That's
Now
on the barrier.
I'm looking myself in the mirror. Do I have?
Oh no!
Oh wow! I'm sinking.
You're sinking.
I'm sinking.
I'll get you, Pirate Danny. Okay, so it's I think because it's a difficult line. Are we laughing at the expense of that blind character?
Yes.
And the answer
Or
there
are we
is
laughing at? Wow, this person is awful.
is that bad. And I think there it is like it's kind of writing the line. Like
Yeah.
we're not exactly sure, but I think where it gets uncomfortable to the point of no return is later on in the sketch whenever it gets to like there's not really another way to look at it. We're really just trying to laugh at the expense of like these marginalized communities. Like then it's just like low blows and you're like, what are you doing here? Or just like flat out like so not true strange shit. Yeah, it gets very uncomfortable. But I would say like one or two moments in the in the movie that actually did land and were like, okay, now that's pretty funny. I think that's pretty good.
What are those two moments? Because there are literally only two moments, and this is a comedy film, and when you only have two moments for an hour 30 something,
can you agree there too?
Perhaps let's see where we are.
I think that one
I
we
don't
can
know what
definitely agree on. The second one, I'm actually like, I can remember really laughing, like belly laughing twice, but I can't really remember one of them. So I'm just gonna give the one, and I think we can agree.
Yeah,
it is the machines are actually children.
Yes!
That's funny.
Okay. So the concept, because it's a 30-minute, excuse me, not 30-minute, 30-second.
Yeah.
30-second sketch where like these machines that we use every day, the ATM, the printer, the soda machine.
Right.
What it actually is
not actually robots.
Yeah, or like machines themselves. They're just these boxes that have kids inside of them that they're the reason like for their operation.
Yeah,
and so whenever you
yeah.
like punch the machine or yell at the machine or curse at the machine, it like they're kids on the inside.
They're kids on the inside,
like
right.
literally, like these machines are kids on the inside.
Yeah, so it's like whenever, like if you're putting your card in and you're getting money back from an ATM, it's actually like a kid just like handing you money.
Yeah.
And like that's a really funny concept. And the way they show it and the way
that it's shot, the tone.
Yes, whenever they open the machines to like very depressingly reveal the kids and like the cinematography like a la Schindler's List, like opening up the machine and the kids like in the shadows looking back at you.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
And and I think it'd also be another thing, like it would have not been as funny, if funny at all, if like the kids were like there against their will or something. Like it was just like a fact of the universe that like, no, it's just kids inside of these. And so what was better, what aided it was like the kids were dressed in order to like sort of represent the device that they were managing per se. So the kids that were inside of the printer all had glasses and like buttoned up white shirts as well to look like business attire as well, which I think actually sold in that sketch. I thought it was a surprisingly funny sketch. It was 30 seconds. It was like 30 it could not have been more than 2 minutes long at all. There wasn't any dialogue at all, actually. That was the sketch. And I would say the only other thing that like got me belly laughing was the reveal of there are testicles on Hugh Jackman's neck, because I just wasn't expecting it and I was completely caught off guard.
Right.
And so it felt very nonchalant in terms of how it was shot, because it wasn't like in frame at all. It wasn't super duper like focused in on it. It was just kind of like towards the side of the frame, and like Hugh Jackman just took off his like scarf, and then, you know, he just kind of like turned around and then he walked off. And that was the shot, but that was the shot that revealed the testicles. And I'm like, oh, an actually well-directed shot.
Yeah.
Right there. Those are, I think, the only two good moments that I could say about this film. And perhaps this is a sizzle serve. I think this is a sizzle serve where the acting in this film is better than one would expect for how awful of a film it is.
I would say it's sizzle serve.
Well, because it's like, you realize, like, oh, these are, like, really well-known actors, for a lot of them, for a reason.
Right.
Because they're actually good at their job. So when you're giving them actual doo-doo, when the scene is about doo-doo and about doo-dooing on another person,
that's real,
and they actually approach it with some semblance of honesty, you're like, wow, I was not expecting
I want to
this.
clarify for the audience, for the listener, that actually is a sketch in the movie.
Yeah.
Like,
the third sketch, actually.
Anna Faris proposes to Chris Pratt that she thinks that they're ready for him to poop on her.
Yeah.
And it
becomes the whole thing, and JB Smoove is like the biggest proponent of it.
Yeah.
And like, here, let me give you this like laxative to really loosen everything up.
That's another example of, there are like, not most of the sketches in this movie are simply not funny in concept, or like are just so uncomfortable. But again, like you said, the actors do a fairly good job of really trying to push it and really trying to.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't say push it after we talk about poop, but it's just something else. I will say the other kind of funny one for me, just the beginning of it was funny, but then it just got old and like kind of uncomfortable, was Terrence Howard's the sketch is called Victory's Glory.
Yeah.
Where he's like in a segregation era basketball team, talking about like their game plan or whatever. I would say like the beginning of that was kind of funny for me.
And
I was
to
like,
give
okay.
proper context, he's coaching an all-black high school team, and they're about to play an all-white high school team.
And basically like the joke that he keeps saying over and over again is like, no guys, like you don't understand, like you're gonna win, like you don't need a game plan because like you're black and they're white, and like you guys are supposed to be good at basketball, right? And I would say like the very first couple moments of that joke were funny, and then
they just beat the shit out of that joke
to where you're like,
absolute
I'm kind of uncomfortable at this point. Yeah. And then the white team comes in and just like, it's just,
and like there were some jokes in that particular sketch, right? Particularly when the white like team comes in.
Yeah.
Well, and it was like, okay, so like this joke is about like white, like racist white people, right?
Yeah.
And like the fact that they're called the White Knights, and like they're just like racist, scummy bastards.
Yeah.
And like, okay, like that's the joke. But then other jokes in that sketch were like, we are black, we must be good at this thing, you know, just like making that racial stereotype. But and then beating it to the ground to such an excessive point.
Well, and also it's like another thing that kind of gets me is the just like, I will say it was pretty funny at the very end of the sketch whenever the like white team is celebrating because they made a buzzer beater, and it's like as if they won the game, and then it pans up, and like the reason they're celebrating is because they scored their first point, and it's like 103-1.
Yeah,
like that's pretty funny. I think like that was a pretty good reveal. But yeah, there's just so much. And I think the other thing that really bothers me and that's so difficult is that it came out in 2013, and to think back to when I was 15 years old, whenever this came out, you cannot excuse it with any sort of like era. Like this was like 2013 was late. That was far too recent to be excusing this movie for any reason.
And a lot of the actors in this film like are still working. Like they're still doing other things too. You know, like this isn't like unrecent thing. One of the like main producers of this film freaking directed Green Book that came out a few years ago, which you revealed to me. I was absolute shocker.
I was shocked.
One of these directors and writers is James Gunn, who like directed and helped write the Guardians of the Galaxy films as well as the Suicide Squad. So like
Elizabeth Banks, excellent actor and director, who has been a huge proponent.
You went too far with director, but she's noteworthy in terms of her direction.
Noteworthy, you're right. Noteworthy. Great actor. I think she has done many things in terms of like advancing feminism. It just directs the most uncomfortable and just abysmal sketch in this movie about like Chloe Grace Moretz and her first period, and it's just so uncomfortable. And then Elizabeth Banks in another sketch gets like pissed on by a cartoon cat and like shot by this cat, and it's just it's not it.
And with the period one, I know like we're dancing around a lot of landmines.
We are
continually, but in an effort to like trying to analyze like what was the joke, what was the punchline, and why didn't it land.
Well,
and
because
so,
it's like there's not really a way of getting away from the content, just simply the like. It's not even a matter of like dissecting it or like how'd they do it. It's like no, I can guess how they did it
because they're trying to a lot of these sketches how they're written, and most of them are written by different people. Like there's way too many cooks in this kitchen,
right?
Like that goes without saying, but like a lot of the jokes they're written to be offensive, and that's the punchline. It's it being offensive as opposed to like holding up a mirror or anything.
It's shock comedy.
It's shock comedy, and like shock comedy, that was like I mean, I don't know if it was the death of shock comedy, but like shoot, like that may have killed this movie 43 may have killed shock comedy.
Fair.
Because of like it was just rough. It's just rough. And then so going back to this like period scene where you have like you can kind of tell by the structure and the execution of it that like the punchline was supposed to be men are stupid and are negligent about women and are just gross as well, that like that's supposed to be the punchline, but it doesn't come across clearly, I don't think. I'm grasping at straws here, but it's just like a lot of these jokes don't land because they're not funny, but like there's a lack of clarity when it comes to the punchline. I think is the biggest thing.
Well, I think another thing is like let's look at some of the more renowned shock comics, right? You got your Dave Chappelle's, your Ricky Gervais, your George Carlin, people like that, right?
And like some of those shock comics who you just mentioned are like falling out of style because
absolutely.
And not undeservedly so.
Right. Well, it's I think largely because their whole MO, what they do is they're trying their hardest to find communities that are the most sensitive and the most prone to being shocked and being appalled. So like for a long time it was Christians, right? And like Christians were the target of a lot of shock comedy.
Yeah.
Especially like, you know, that was George Carlin's big thing, was like that he always would go after Christians.
Really uptight people in general as well.
Sure, yeah. But like the communities have shifted to where now the most easily shocked community, the one that's easiest to poke at and get a reaction out of, it happens to be the LGBTQ plus communities. And that seems to be now the trend of shock comics is I'm going to go after that community because it is the easiest to shock and perturb.
It's easy to poke at a marginalized community.
Sure. Well, yes, it's easy to poke at any community that does not want to be poked.
Yeah.
And so I think that's that's what they're going for. But I think what separates those shock comics and the reason that they were so renowned and so popular for so long is because even though they were shocking, at the end of the day, they end with a message, and they're doing it for a reason, whereas this has no reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that the shock comics are good. That's just to
say
not
to say like it worked every time, because like Dave Chappelle is a very recent example of that not working recently.
Absolutely.
For a lot
and same
of
with Ricky Gervais. And
yes.
I
we're not excusing it.
Right.
But like we're trying to like establish and present that like there are people that have pulled this off.
Right. And that is not it. Or even though those comedians like earlier in their career were able to pull it off in some ways, but haven't recently.
But you got to be smart about it.
But you got to be smart about it.
Because this movie is just dumb comedy.
You have to be driven for a specific reason, and this was not. Bo Burnham, another example of a shock comic that I think actually pulls it off.
Yeah.
That he makes some like really shocking stuff that you're like, holy shit, did he just say that? Yes, he did. But he does it for a reason for the most part, not all the time.
Yeah. Well, and like in an effort
this has
still,
no drive.
But in an effort like shock comedy is at its most effective when it's putting a mirror to the audience, when it makes the audience realize something about themselves. That is when shock comedy is effective, and that is when you should do shock comedy. You shouldn't do shock comedy just for the sake of doing shock comedy.
Right.
You can't just like all of a sudden say a racist joke and like, ha ha ha, the joke is, that's racist. That's not funny. You're just being racist for no point, and you just are an idiot.
The shock shouldn't be, I'm shocked they said that. They shouldn't have. It should be, I'm shocked they said that. I've never thought about that before.
Yeah, and it makes me realize something about myself.
Yeah.
And then the laugh sort of comes up. It's like the uncomfortable nature about myself, the uncomfortable nature of like what I have to deal with. I want to talk about very briefly. I just want to bring this up rather. A movie that effectively does this sort of thing where it rides the line effectively and also doesn't ride the line effectively at all. Twofold, right? At the same film.
Oh.
Tropic Thunder.
Ah, interesting film.
Because, and before
Very
we,
interesting
launch
talk about.
ourselves into this break, I'll just briefly mention that I think Tropic Thunder does a really good job of surprisingly, and this is going to sound awful out of context, I recognize it, pulling off blackface. Because the joke, the punchline of that, Robert Downey Jr.'s character being in blackface,
is the white people.
Is not black people. The punchline is not black people at all. The punchline is these white actors and these white people who are trying to poke fun at this and are like actors as well who are like way too devoted at this of doing inhumane shit in order for their like roles, as if they're like being in this like higher zone of like zen or art or like capacity because they're doing it for theater or anything like that, right? And like that's effectively done because that's the punchline, and then also having in that ensemble another black character who's calling into question, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Right.
And then you have the other side of that coin where it's not done well at all. Simple Jack, you have a character in a previous film within that film played by Ben Stiller, and the joke is just making fun of people who have mental disabilities, and it's like, okay, that's not funny.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how like that movie does both. And as for movie 43, for sure it does a lot more of the latter, and it does none of the former.
Right. Well, I think another thing that goes into Tropic Thunder is, and as we're wrapping up here, is that that joke. It's all about who is making the joke, I think, right?
Yeah.
So like we're talking about like there are a lot of like white comedians that can make fun of white people, and it's not weird, or like black comedians that make fun of black people, and it's not as weird because it's coming from them, right? And it's who is making the joke. And whenever it gets into movies and television and this art form, it gets dicey because it's like, well, if you want to get technical, it's really the writer that's making the joke, and the actor is just portraying the joke. And so I think it's not in great taste, but in okay taste that Robert Downey Jr. is doing that, because it's coming from, like, Robert Downey Jr. is not the one making the joke. He's saying it, and he is the poster boy of it, but it's not like, I think that we as an audience know that he's not the one that made the line.
It's but also like, even it's a lot easier to make the joke when you're a part of that community, and I'm not saying you can't make the joke when you're not part of that community, but like it is much more of a tightrope.
Yes.
When you're not part of that
it's
community.
Definitely a careful line to you. Absolutely.
Regardless of who wrote Robert Downey Jr.'s character in that film, it was still a well done joke.
Right. And let's get into I guess we can get into roll call next, as well as like if there was a way of this movie succeeding in the next segment. All right?
Sure.
Yes, sir. All right, and welcome back, folks. So, where we left off, I teased just a tiny bit, a little bit of a roll call. Roll call is becoming a recurring segment for us, and let me tell you, I really like it. I'm really into this roll call thing.
It forces us to get into specificity.
Right. It's a more organized way rather than just like our thoughts or notes of getting to the meat of it. So, Danny, I'm just gonna go down the line here and give you just a couple of sketches from this movie, okay? And then you tell me your gut reaction, your first thoughts,
Sure.
Okay. Right off the bat, I'm just going to go ahead and just lump all of the pitch segments into one with the Dennis Quaid through line, right? How do we feel about all of those scenes individually?
Awful. It was bad, poorly written. Probably some of actually the weaker acting in the film. There's a rape joke in there that's not funny.
Yeah.
Dennis Quaid holds Greg Kinnear at gunpoint, and it's like he's literally holding the audience at gunpoint. And then it made me think to myself, is this movie supposed to even try to be good in the first place?
Yeah.
Like, is this movie trying to be bad just to mess with us? I had that legitimate thought in my mind. But that being said, like,
I felt
it was such a lame through line. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just boring, and like I could also tell Common didn't want to be there.
Oh, there's no way Common wanted to be there. Why would he want to be there?
Yeah. I mean, it lacks common sense.
Oh, you. Something that
Thank you for laying the joke set.
Yeah, you're welcome. Laugh track better. Sorry. So there was something that happened with these settings, these sketches, these sketch settings that was common throughout the entire. I'm just gonna keep saying it. Common throughout the entire movie, and it is for some reason every set they chose and that they designed looked like it was either from a porn movie or from Tommy Wiseau's.
Tommy Wiseau, yeah,
is
the
it
room.
The room or room? Okay,
the room.
The room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it looked insanely cheap. I
You know what I
had
mean?
that thought as well. I'm like, this can't be somebody's office in like a studio.
Yeah,
place,
like this
and
looks,
like this hallway, like this looks awful.
Yeah.
And the lighting was like.
The lighting was practically fluorescent and not quite, but practically. And all of the walls were like white or off-white. And it was like,
yeah, and
why
it
are we
was
doing this?
like, and the cinematography for the most part, there were like 2 shots I would give. Is devoid of character. Like the
There
only shot
must
that I
have
actually
been.
liked was like it was like this one shot that kept going back and forth to Dennis Quaid and Greg Kinnear, and I'm like, oh, okay, like you were actually getting the flow of a scene. It wasn't a good scene still, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like that was actually a well-directed portion of that. And then at least Will Sasso was a great physical actor. That's the most I can give for that. It was so freaking stupid. Also, just
Yeah.
how the scene was staged, and like there were multiple moments prior that Greg Kinnear could have just taken the gun from Dennis Quaid's character anyways. Like it was just so stupid. And it was a very, very lame through line to put these sketches together. And I don't know what that better through line is, but it was so pathetic
Yep.
that it calls the legitimacy and the really just the creation of this movie into question. I would
Fair,
go
okay.
with that.
The next segment, The Catch, with Hugh Jackman and Kate Winslet, where Hugh Jackman has testicles on his neck.
It was a good reveal, and it's these consistent jokes that have to do with the fact of like Hugh Jackman has testicles on his neck, and it's a good antithesis to the fact of how beautiful Hugh Jackman is as a human being.
Fair.
And I would say if you have a sketch like that in your film, you are allowed one sketch that's as gross as that. Now, as we see later on, almost every other sketch is as gross, if not more gross. But
True.
like you are allowed that, and I thought that even though the jokes weren't insanely clever or anything, it was decent enough physical comedy where I'm like, okay, like I can give you a little bit of that. And because the reveal of the balls on his neck was so good that I was okay with like all of these like
Right.
jokes about like this one thing about him.
So we were saying that it was okay.
Yeah.
That sketch was fine. If all the other sketches in this movie were really good, except for that one, do you think that would change the way we're talking about it?
Yeah, probably.
I think
I'm
that,
not
I
sure.
think that we would say it's trash.
We would probably make it one of the weaker ones,
Mhm.
you know, but like, you know, balls to the wall with this one, I guess.
Balls to the neck. Yeah. So next one's Homeschooled.
Yep.
with Liev Schreiber and
Naomi Watts. Yep. With the ones about like their homeschooling their kid with a proper quote unquote high school experience. Conceptually it's good. There's a homophobic joke in there that like I guess the punchline is like how cruel high schoolers can be, but I don't think it lands in the way that they wanted it to.
No.
Because I don't think it was well done, and I don't think it was that funny. But I'll give the concept a thumbs up for that one, and like
Concept thumbs up.
Yeah, and then Liev Schreiber and Naomi Watts were great in it as well, and were great characters in it. I like, but even it was still a little bit tough towards the end. I'll say that.
Yeah. I would say it was kind of weird near the end, but again, yeah, absolutely great concept, great setup. I think Naomi Watts and Liev Schreiber overall did a really pretty good job.
Yeah,
I think they were pretty funny.
Yeah, these are good actors. That's the thing about this film.
Actors.
Good actors.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The Proposition, which is Chris Pratt and Anna Faris's poop sketch.
Awful, terrible, not funny. Poop jokes are just you're allowed one fart joke at most, and it's got to be like a joke that like eases tension or something. But like at that and like poop jokes aren't funny. They're really lame. The thing is, a lot of the jokes in this film are low-hanging fruit. And so for this sketch, like it's like cream of the crop. Like we think that poop jokes are funny. And it's one of those things where Mac and I were discussing like this film must have been really funny in the writer's room. Like, can you imagine being in a room with a group of your friends and you're just like being absurd about like, oh, what if this sketch is like this? And like the idea of this particular scene where Anna Faris wants to be pooped on by Chris Pratt is funnier in concept than it'll ever be in execution, to the point that you shouldn't bother executing it at all.
Yeah. I'm sure that the night that they got super drunk and thought all this crap up was a very fun night for them.
Yeah.
It should have stayed in that night.
Yes. Let me call back to one of the first episodes that we did in this season where we reviewed the movie Tusk, right? Starring Justin Long. And so part of the credits in that movie is essentially is the equivalent of what I just said of like the two writers, or like one of the main writers and director in this film is just like having like actually doing a podcast, and it's from their actual recording of like, what if in the end of this film, like they realized like, you know, these characters, Justin Long's character is more walrus than human than he used to be. And it's so like that experience of like writing it down is like funny, but the actual, you know, execution of it wasn't funny. And I will give like the writers like, hey, maybe it was funny when they were writing it. It should not have been shot at all.
Right. Well, you know the most important similarity between Tusk and movie 43,
which is
Justin Long. Exactly. So he's really the plague of the earth. That's not true. I love Justin Long. So, next one, Veronica. What?
No, keep going. Keep going. Why do you have to acknowledge every face I make?
You seem shocked. I want to make sure that
that's a little Easter egg for the visual audience, and now Veronica. You have derailed the audio audience.
Veronica, with Kieran Culkin and Emma Stone.
It's ridiculous because like the acting in that sketch is good. They're just trying to like they're past lovers and really angry at each other, but simultaneously trying to seduce each other in the middle of a grocery store, and like the microphone is accidentally on, so everybody
like,
hears it.
Right.
And so like the acting is like actually okay, and it's fun to watch Kieran Culkin and Emma Stone at work
because they're very good. Like they're very good actors. It's just so freaking weird.
And
I will say,
please.
The I might add on to. Like, I thought it was super funny whenever, like, all the old people in the grocery store banded together to, like, let him go and
oh, you thought that was funny?
Find her. At the very end, like, whenever she left and they were talking, and it was like, you need to go after her. And he's like, but I work till 5 a.m. And it's like, I can cover till 3. I'll go 3 to 5. And, like, they start
I guess the
stuff.
idea of that is funny.
I thought that was kind of funny. Or, like, it's just, like, a bunch of elderly people, like, go bang her, man. Like, I thought that was, like, a kind of funny concept.
It wasn't executed well, once again. Like, it's one of those things that, it's the perfect example, once again, that they have one joke and they beat the living shit out of it.
Yeah.
It's just like, just say that joke once and move on.
In some instances, the literal
Get a new joke.
Get a new joke. Okay. Oh, we haven't even talked about one of the worst
Oh.
ones yet. Are you nervous?
Yeah, no, I'm nervous about this one because it's genuinely awful.
I don't even know how to talk about
It's
it.
gross. It's gross.
Do we just say that it's bad and move on?
No.
iBabe?
It's iBabe, where what if it's an iPod, but the iPod is a naked woman?
That's it. That's the whole joke. That's the whole joke.
That's the joke.
And
That's the joke.
it's
Isn't that funny, guys? Because it isn't. It isn't funny at all.
and that's it. That's it. That's the end
Well,
of
because
it.
like that's the punchline. Boom, that's it. We're done. Okay, yay, woo.
The charging port is in the nether regions, and so of course all of
No, that isn't the charging port. There's like it's like a coolant, like it's like a
Oh,
fan
you're so
that's
right.
in there.
It's a coolant.
And of course, like the joke is like, oh, what if like the iPod is a naked woman, and then oh my god, like horny teenage boys
Start
will want
putting
to start putting their fingers and or phallic objects inside of this hole. Oh my god, it has a fan. Oh my god, it rips it off. Ah, funny.
yeah. So like their dicks are getting cut
It's
off.
just low hanging, like, right, because it's very sophomoric and very potty humor, where it's just like, huh, naked body. Oh my god, what if like this happens? Ha ha ha.
Yeah, like
It's not clever. It's
in the
the
credits
issue.
and the bloopers, there's legitimately a clip of one of the actors. I can't remember who it is. Just going up to this poor naked woman that's been hired to just stand there, and he just like starts like just pointing at her,
Yeah.
like just pointing at her private
Yeah.
parts, and I'm like, oh, that's really sad. Okay, which we're gonna get back to
It's
a
rough.
very
It's
special
just-
segment
It's bad.
involving that later. Superhero speed dating. Justin Long, Jason Sudeikis, Uma Thurman, Kristen Bell, hell.
It's a good concept in theory, where you have Robin, yes, from like Batman, and Robin
needs a date.
is speed dating because he's a loser. And
Right.
so and then Batman is consistently getting in the way of that. Like conceptually funny,
Yeah.
I think. But then
like,
it just ends up
cock-blocking
being
Batman, funny
Yeah.
concept.
and then it ends up being not funny towards the end because
No.
there's a transgender joke that is not funny, and then there's also like a really creepy joke where like Batman is just looking at Supergirl's crotch like directly into it and is
Yeah.
like harassment. A lot of it is Oh yeah, no, and then there's a joke about Superman who is pleasuring himself in front of Lois
Lane's
Lane.
window,
Yep.
and then he finishes, and it breaks the window that he's looking through.
Yep. And so
Yeah.
like harassment's funny, guys. Yeah. Surprised Louis C.K. wasn't in that sketch.
No, Machine Kids. Machine Kids was good.
Machine Kids was the 2-minute one that we briefly discussed, where
Yeah.
what if the machines were actually kids?
And that
Because it doesn't stay in there too long.
yeah.
Because right when it finishes, like really telling
Well,
the
the
joke,
kids
it
stay
gets
in
out.
there pretty long. Middle school date. That is Christopher Mintz-Plasse. That's Chloe Grace Moretz.
Where she
Directed by
has her
Elizabeth
first
Banks.
period, and once again, like the joke of it is supposed to be men are idiots, but the joke isn't done well, and it's just not that funny, and the script isn't that good. Is there more to be said?
No, it's sad.
And I felt sad. I felt more sad than like, haha, this is funny. Like,
and
I felt
we're gonna get back to that.
we are Jesus,
Yes. Happy Birthday,
which
is Johnny Knoxville and Gerard Butler and Sean William Scott.
and Johnny Knoxville kidnaps a leprechaun, and oh yeah, there's also a little person joke. Okay, yeah, and it's bad. It's also bad. And then like the punchline in the end is like they kill these 2 leprechauns, and then they get a pot of gold, and then Johnny Knoxville character also kidnapped a fairy who performs fellatio for gold coins. Hooray! That's funny. Woo!
Truth or Dare.
It's rough. It's rough. It's once again like Stephen Merchant and Halle Berry are good actors, and it's ridiculous watching them because the script is so bad. And yeah, and then there's a surgery performed on Stephen Merchant's character where he looks like a bucktooth East Asian individual, and like there's no other way to say it, but like the punchline is like, don't Asian individuals look funny?
Yeah, that's really it.
Like what? Like.
Then she calls him Yao Ming.
And she calls him Yao Ming. Thank you
Yeah.
for mentioning that. Yep. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
racial
rough.
stereotyping. Well, and like we're really like sticking ourselves in the mud in terms of like this movie is just rough
Yeah.
through and through. It's just bad. What's the last few?
Last one. Last two. Victory's Glory, which is
It's not that well executed. Move on.
Terrence Howard, and then Beazle.
It's just gross.
It's just
and
so
Beazle
gross.
is an animated cat performs a piss
So
shower on Elizabeth Banks. Who cares?
Gross.
Like, who cares? Who cares? This movie sucks, and I'm not gonna like rule out sketch films forever.
Well,
but I'm
Danny,
but I'm
I
just
think that
sick
that's-
and tired of it.
I think that that's what the next part of the conversation seems to be for us. Was there?
I'm
any
getting
hope?
exhausted talking about this film.
Was there any hope for this movie? Was there any section, or do you think there's a world in which a sketch movie like this with all these celebrities could ever work?
Well, I want to say yes. I don't want to rule it out of the question because I'm like, oh, a sketch film. Like I'm intrigued by the concept because there are multiple sketch TV shows for the past decades and decades that have been around for a while. Like the most popular one is SNL, and even though they've fallen out of vogue here and there still have been some throughout the years that have acquired notoriety, like Key and Peele or Chappelle Show, for example, right? And so like sketch shows exist and are still a thing, and they happen, right? And people enjoy them. And so I don't want to rule out sketch films, entirely as a concept.
Right.
But it's like when you present a go-around like this, like it really begs the question of like, who are the people that you're bringing on for this film, and who's the production company that allows this to happen? And so essentially how this movie was made was that they were just coerced big-time actors in order to do this as like a favor, essentially, and they would not know any other part of this film, did not have a hand in any part of this film. And so you have 12 different cooks in this kitchen making a Frankenstein in front of you and trying to force it in front of the audience and say, hey, isn't this funny? And absolutely isn't. Because it lacks through line, it lacks cohesion, it's all over the place. And when it's all over the place, then you're going to really rely on the fact of like the sketches themselves being funny, but the sketches themselves aren't funny because they're just being offensive. And when you're having offensive, just be there for offensive sake, it's not funny, it's just insulting. And you're wasting my time. And you're not making me learn anything about myself either, or even making me laugh. You're just literally wasting my time. And that's just, in my personal opinion, that's one of the biggest blights that you could perform in terms of any sort of artistic capacity, is wasting someone's time. Because there is so much art in this universe, and we recognize that, right? The more and more we look at other things, that if you're like just simply wasting somebody's time, that's just disgusting. Because for the love of God, we're only on this earth for such a brief period of time. It's very, very brief, all right?
Danny.
And it's not worth twiddling the thumbs, and it's not worth putting this vomit, this disgusting filth, and putting it on a plate in front of us. It's not worth it, and it's gross, and every single writer and director in this film, and every single producer, probably more so, should feel ashamed of themselves, and I hope they lost sleep over this.
Oh man, damn, Danny. Oh, I like that one. I hope they've lost sleep. That's good. That's good shit, Danny. Proud of you. I'm curious. Where does it?
Well said. Well said.
Where does it
what
shape
are you doing?
up? No, I'm trying to find.
What are you trying to
remember there was an episode earlier in this season.
Because I gave you so much time to filibuster.
Well, yeah, and then it gave me an idea, and I'm wondering because there was a movie that we watched earlier this season that was like an easy F, and I'm wondering if this is in your easy F category. Basically,
was it not Tusk? I'm very confused on like what you mean by that.
I don't think
but
so.
Well
but
said. Way to try to figure out the question while you're looking it up, Mac. This is recording 101,
Danny,
right?
Danny,
I'm trying
Danny,
to actively
Danny,
filibuster for
Danny,
you
buddy,
right now.
buddy,
Does this
I'm
instantly?
You were mad at the movie, not me. We're okay, buddy.
I'm sorry.
We're okay. It's okay.
I'm sorry.
We're okay.
And I'm sorry for suggesting this film.
No,
well.
don't be. It's. There was a discussion that we had after watching it where there was this moment of like, do we review this? And I'm glad that we did, and I think that we should have reviewed it, and that's good. And I'm glad that we stuck to our guns a little bit there. But yeah, there is definitely like a it's difficult reviewing, and I do regret. I apologize to the audience right now that we didn't say this on the front end. I wish that we would have, but because we didn't, I'll make sure to say it now as clear as possible. We cannot like recommend you staying away from this movie enough. Like, please, like, I know that we've been talking a lot about it, and I think part of the reason that we've tried to go really hard into detail is so that you don't feel like you've missed anything and that you have to watch it. You have not missed anything. Do not give your money to this film. Please, for the love of all that is good and holy in the world, do not watch this film at all costs. Fair to say?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, don't be supporting this. Please don't. However, I think that it definitely begs an interesting question, which is, Danny, let's say that you were approached by a very, very wealthy producer that you know and love.
Sure. Yeah. Whose work I respect, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know that you're working alongside really, really big names, and you're not sent an entire script, but you're just sent a script for your sketch, right? And let's say that your sketch was just the testicles in the neck Hugh Jackman sketch, right?
Yeah.
Do you take it? Because you don't know that this is the movie that's about to be made.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. And once again, like, I can see how all these actors wound up in here. We're just like, all right, how bad can this be?
Right. If you're Stephen Merchant and they show you the makeup and the costume that you're about to do for the last scene of that Truth or Dare sketch, is that just like a walkout? Is that just like a I'm done here?
Yeah, you gotta walk out on that, or like you gotta have a serious discussion of like what are we doing?
Yeah.
What is this joke?
Yeah.
How is this going to land? How are we going to make it land?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because clearly from there was no discussion about that period. I mean, it was just disgusting. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can we agree that? Well, no. I think that there definitely are some actors at fault here. Because we both really like to be actor apologists. We both like to say it wasn't the actor's fault, like they were just doing their job. I think there were quite a few actors that are at fault here.
Yeah, no, for sure. Sure. That, like, maybe I can imagine some jokes, slipping through the cracks, right? So, like, in Homeschooled, you have the two parents say the F homophobic slur to the kid. And, like, okay, maybe they had a discussion about, like, okay, what's the punchline of this joke? All right, well, it's like high schoolers being, unwarranted assholes. Okay, like, I can imagine that one, like, slipping through the cracks. But then you also have Batman in the speed dating one have, like, a transgender joke and then also be sexually harassing multiple characters in that film. And it's just like, okay, like, what like, is nobody going to stop this?
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. I don't know. What
do
you want me to say?
It's not even a matter of, like, I wish that someone would have come in and saved it, or I wish that there would have been some sort of, like, moral higher ground.
But somebody needed to stop this film.
Yeah. It's more like it should not have been made in the first place.
Correct.
I think that personally, I do think that there is hope for something like this. I think that the idea of I'm going to really take my time and just, like, whenever actors want to put something together, I think that would be super fun. I think that like a Lorne Michaels would be really good at producing something like that. And I think that'd be a fun time. I think where it gets difficult for me is that I feel like the original concept comes from a place of we're going to make a sketch comedy movie a la, like we're talking about Key and Peele, SNL, these, Odin Gross, these, like, sketch comedy Monty Python type shows. But we're going to make it really well produced and with really good actors. Just, like, a lot more money and a lot more time.
Yeah.
Right? Makes total sense to me. Here's the problem. It wasn't well produced. It
wasn't well written either.
It was not well written. It looked like garbage. It sounded like garbage. So, and it especially confused me because as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, like, SNL over the past couple of seasons, I'd say at least the past 3 or 4 years, has been better produced than this. Like, not jokes aside, just in a week, they are able to make things that are more visually and acoustically appealing than this. I'm confused how they're able to do that so much better and so much quicker now. So I think that at this point, if they really made a very, very high quality product and really actually focused on making something that was that high tier, I think that has hope. I I think there are a lot of actors that would be good at that nowadays. Like why the hell not? But just a different helm. Peter Farrelly, being the producer of this, the executive producer of this, did not deserve to be, and I think that that's where a lot of this went wrong. Is that I think that the person the person that was the through line of this, the person that was at the helm of all of these, because obviously they were written and directed by a bunch of different people, but because it wasn't just like one or two that were uncomfortable, all of them were bad. So it must have been the person that was in the most control of all of them or overseeing all of them that was the problem. So I think that the fault, if there was to be a primary fault, lays at the feet of Peter Farrelly. And that's a 2-minute warning.
2-minute warning.
2-minute warning. Danny, how do we even wrap this one up?
It's bad.
How do we even wrap this one up, man?
It's bad. Don't watch it. I mean, it's one of the worst things I've ever seen. It's not the worst thing I've ever seen.
What is the worst thing you've ever seen, Danny?
Number one cheerleader camp.
Yeah.
I wish I could like bleach my eyes like from that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's bad. Is it the worst thing that we've seen this season? Probably.
I'd say safely, yeah.
It's in the conversation. Bottom 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Don't watch it. I don't know. It's difficult to have a conversation sometimes about like really, really, really shitty stuff because it's just like it's wrong all over the place, and it's amazing because like I don't want to rule off sketch films forever, but I think like now from here on out, from here on out, when somebody's like, I want to make a sketch film, and then probably a bunch of producers are gonna be like, oh, like movie 43.
Right, fair.
Like, it's amazing how one film may have
it was a real
screwed
shame.
It up for an entire genre
Right.
for the next, like, 25 years plus.
Because this was kind of an experiment in ways.
Yeah.
So sad that it had to be this. So sad that it had to be this. Yeah, there was a much better way of doing this that just was not done. And, yeah, please don't see it. Please don't see it.
Please don't see it.
Yeah, and we will promise to just leave it out of our memories or vernacular as long as we make an exception for our tier list.
Yep.
And that is that. Danny, next week or next episode,
next time
we are reviewing, you guessed it, season 3 of Barry.
Woo, season 3 of
Classic,
Barry.
season 3 of Barry.
Something that's actually good.
Something that's actually good and something that's coming out right now, something that's relevant, something that's here and happening. Thank you.
This was so exhausting.
This was, yeah. I dare I say regret?
In ways. Most ways.
Yeah.
Always? Yeah.
I need to take a bath.